Welcome to our July 2019 work session. I'm going to ask Alderman Brian to open us in a prayer and we'll get going with the agenda.
Lord, we thank you for this day to come back and do the city's work. God, we just pray you be with each one of us. Pray, God, you be with each one that's represented here, Lord, and just pray you be with the city as a whole. Thank you, God, for all the employees of the city that work so hard to keep the city functioning the way it should. Lord, we just pray we'd always represent our citizens in a way that you would have us. Pray, God, that you be with each and every thought that anyone might have here today. Thank you, Lord, for these refreshments that's been furnished this morning. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and start into our department reports under Public Works. Item number 1, Ordinance 2019-05, updated excavation and cut. This has been discussed last two Public Works Committee meetings. I have spoken with the CEO since yesterday, and he has some concerns and would like to request that FPU and Scott, did you guys sit down and talk about some of these?
Well, thank you, Mayor, and we have had a couple of conversations. We've had a couple of email exchanges. What I'd like to recommend is Mr. Dye attend the next Public Works meeting, and then that way there's none of this going back and forth, and we can have the straightforward conversation and have his concerns addressed.
He's here. What's your concerns, Britt? Is that okay, Mayor?
That's fine. I mean, that's fine with me.
I have no problem with it. On the changes that you're recommending to the ordinance is, well, I know you deleted the operation permit required where it says other than the city of Fayetteville or Fayetteville Public Utilities. You took FPU out of about requiring permit. Got no problem with that. Don't have no problem with a permit. But the other issue that you took out, it says such application shall be rejected or approved by the city clerk within 24 hours of its filing. That sentence right there has been deleted. We're working on a time-based, when we borrow state funds, how important it is to complete a job. If you're telling me that it doesn't say, if you take the sentence out, that you're gonna give us a permit within 24 hours, and we got this funds over here to spend, what's the time frame gonna be?
What time frame do you need, Britt?
Just leave it in there as it is. Don't take that sentence out. Leave it in the 24 hours. Because we, like I said, we got a demand on time, borrowing state funds, especially if it comes to forgiveness money, that we have to spend that money within a time frame.
We talked about changing that to different times, and finally I think that Eddie just recommended maybe just take it out, and we didn't see that as a big issue either way, because we didn't see that it's going to become an issue. I think the 24 hours, one reason we looked at the 24 hours, maybe changing it or either, and we had thoughts of just changing it to a different time period. Okay, let's say we was thinking about it. They're been in there a long time. Someone comes in at 2 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. And it could even be a holiday. It could be a three weekend holiday. A lot of times we have them. And they they ask for the permits and all such as that. Well, on our side, we're going to need some time to look at those permits. I mean, to see what they involve and all. See if there's any kind of a conflict with something we might have going on. I don't know that it's a big deal at all with us of having some time period in there. That's kind of what we started thinking about on a 24-hour deal. We might not always be able to issue a permit in 24 hours. Why that was in there to begin with, I don't have any idea. But I certainly believe it needs to be more than 24 hours. On our side, we need longer than 24 hours.
I don't have no problem with the 24 hours, but you need to have a time in there, because if you don't have a time in there, who says what the time frame is?
Well, what would you be comfortable with?
Well, really, I like 24 hours because, other than that, when you talk about a holiday, if there's any work done over weekends or something like that, 90% of the time it's going to be emergency work anyway. I mean, we're going to have to do it regardless of a permit that we have to follow up with later on to get a permit. But normally, if it's planned work, and, since the city owns the FPU, our working relationship, it should be where you should be able to get a permit, I would think.
We'll run that back through the 24 hours that's in there does not only apply to FPU, it applies to everybody.
I understand.
It applies to everybody. And we don't know, I don't know if we've had any problems, but when we started looking at all this, we got to thinking, well, this wasn't just necessarily at FPU, this 24 hours, this was everything in general. At 24 hours, we could put ourselves in a position where we just simply couldn't issue that permit 24 hours. It could even be that we don't have staff on hand to issue that permit within 24 hours. But I tell you what, if it's okay with Vice Mayor Small, because we're on that committee, and if it's okay with Eddie, we would just simply go back. We'll go back in our next public works meeting, and we'll put this off till the next public works committee meeting, and we'll go back and revisit that, because our intent certainly is not to create no conflict. And it sounds like this is creating a conflict. That's not the intent.
Well, we also thought that 24 hours was going to be restrictive on either side. And when we talked with Mr. Collins, it would be nice if someone could come to our next meeting so that we could talk face to face, and then this word of mouth and passing back and forth could be clarified. Because it definitely wasn't to tie your hands in any kind of way, or anyone else's.
Well, the restrictions that the state puts on us when we get ready to do work is really demanding of how we got to get it done, and some of these changes really concern me. So if you're going to address that one, let's move to the 30 days to 60 days, where you went from 60 days, the contractor shall fill, trench, or hold concrete, and you changed that to 30 days. And my response back to Scott's email yesterday, what if it pertains to weather where you can't get it done in 30 days? And Danny, you know that, when you dig a hole in the street, a lot of times, by the time you get the compaction done, and if it goes to raining, then we keep going back and we keep putting gravel in this hole to get it compacted before we ever pour the concrete. Sometimes that can't be done within 30 days. 60 days was working out well for us, but I think most of the time we did this, we got it done within the 30 days if we could. Along with the permit as well, if we got 30 holes to dig on the street to make taps, is that one permit or is that 30 permits?
The reason we looked at changing from 60 days to 30 days does have something to do with FPU. And the reason we did that is because what's been happening with all the street work, it's almost all FPU. And the bottom line is you've been getting it done so good so quick, we just felt like we could change it to 30 days.
Yep, that might not always be the case. I mean, if we get concrete to pour during the winter and it's below freezing and you got a month of cold temperature, we're not going to be pouring concrete within 30 days.
Well, we can look at that.
Okay.
If that's an issue, what we would need to do is we could go back and look at that, and we'll just not, as far as I'm concerned, we won't act on this today, and we'll go back and
Until we get all the concerns.
till we get all
narrowed
our
down
concerns, and that's what we want to do. But I would highly, we know what your concerns are now, but if you could make our next meeting, when's that next meeting, Scott? If you can, we'll sit down and still go over them again,
Just a minute, I'll give you the exact time.
It's,
August 5th.
yeah, August 5th?
August 5th at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, if you just pop me an email or a text or something, I'll put it on the calendar to get that done. But used to, it wasn't a lot of concerns, but like I said, we're restricted by what we can do with the state funds. And it's very important to us to get the money spent within time if we can get that money. Because right now we got Pat Marsh and Shane Reeves all working on trying to get some more state revolving fund money, and I sure hate to lose it.
What do you think your maximum is, Brett, on the time frame with it? I know you like 24, but what would be something that would work for y'all that would give us?
Probably 36 hours would probably work.
Okay.
If you make it work. Just something up to 36 hours or something. But if you don't put nothing in there.
Right.
And another concern I got is like if you paved a street in 2015 and we're still doing rehab and we're doing smoke testing and we're doing Cameron, and it comes back and it says, well, we got some more rehab we might have to continue to do on this street that's paved. Are we going to get permission to do rehab since you paved it, or are we not?
Right, that's the conversation we need to have so that clarification can be made. We won't be paving streets where you're doing rehab.
And I don't know if you was aware, but you know, we try to do our best in communicating, but we're all about trying to do better. But you know, when we did all the rehab, the city was giving us a sheet like this right here of all the streets we was gonna be working on. Even when previous was told that we weren't through on on Bellevue, but it got paved anyway.
But now, that list, does that have the dates you're gonna work on them?
No, it don't have a date, see, because the priorities change. That's what makes it so difficult. You know, the same thing with open cut, like Danny was talking about of getting it done in 30 days. Sometimes, you know, when all that's being done, especially when we got a lot of connections, we try to make sure everything is sealed up like it needs to be, so we don't have to go in there and cut the concrete and dig the hole back out to make a repair. You know, even though it's the contractor's responsibilities, but it's still that possibility that could happen.
See, that's where I think it came up on this, just having the permit, which we're not charging you for. It's just because you do have subs doing this.
Right.
And we're just trying to keep up with that flow, because you're doing different things every day and we're doing different things every day. And going to the point about how quickly something, if we ramp against a holiday, Scott, I'm assuming that you can approve a permit just as easily. We have a secondary backup if somebody wasn't here.
Yes.
If Eddie was out or somebody, that you can approve the permit.
Yes.
So.
I mean, our job is to do the best we can for
Sure.
the city of Fayetteville.
Sure.
We're trying to improve all the services
That's
they
right.
got to make it a better place to live.
That's right.
And we're trying our best to work and get along with the city. We try to do everything we can to communicate all that.
That's right.
But at the same time, it's like Mr. Bryant brought up during your last work session. You can go pave a street, we could be back in there a week later repairing things because the infrastructure is so old and deteriorating that heavy equipment can bust that line that we might have cambered 3 months prior to that and everything was okay. We've had that to happen several different occasions because it's so old. You know, and we're trying to get it all replaced and we got a lot more to do. And
Well, now,
It's our intent to eliminate that, so
Yeah.
it won't be
you know, some
in front of you or vice versa.
We've addressed all of that in the meetings we've been having, that we understand that how utilities have to work. We understand that. What we're trying to do, and I hope this is what you think we're trying to do, we're trying to get some way to where we can start some type of a paving, you know, instead of waiting 5 or 6 years, some type of a paving in areas to where we feel like y'all can get all your work out of the way except for emergency situations. Now, we've addressed, we know what can happen. We know you run them paving machines over those streets, and we know what it can do to those old lines and all. But now, that being said, we've had, Vice Mayor, how many meetings have we had on this?
About 3.
2, 3, 3, you know, at least 3. We've been talking about this. And of course, as a committee, we do these things in our meetings, but then we leave it to employees to get with you and talk to you, you know, because we don't normally get with you directly as board members, whatever. This is the first time that us
Trying to
two
fix the communication is what we're trying to do.
has heard these two concerns. And that's the reason I asked you to come up. Let's just get them out and open, work on them.
Yeah, I had no problem with that.
Create a
But,
dialogue,
Come out
so
open.
we'll know where
I
you
mean,
are.
we work well with Eddie over there, you know, whatever he needs, we try to help him, he tries to help us, but,
Absolutely.
and, you know, we want to keep that relationship, you know, out there where the guys can work together without having to come to me or having to come to you all, you know, so that's the
I
way
don't
it needs to
think
be.
there's not going to be any problem with keeping a good working relationship. Our intent in our committee, we've said over and over and over and over that our intent is to work together on this to do the best we can for both. Because we understand what FPU was handed with the water and sewer system. We understand that. I do.
I'm glad of that.
Yeah.
We understand that. There's nothing about that we don't understand. But if we can work out some kind of a system to where we can give y'all some heads up later on down the road, maybe we look and we'll get into that a little bit later on. It doesn't cover that in this ordinance right here. Some kind of a system where we can work together to get that sewer and water work done, and also maybe to be able to do some paving. That's what our intent is. And to try to keep from conflicting with each other.
Right.
This is our full intent. You know, if you'd have sat in on our committee meetings, you'd understand that we try to be very proactive and how we're doing this. But hey, it's the first time we've heard these two concerns, but I'm
And it's
glad you
good
come
to
up here
hear.
and told us.
Glad to know them, so.
But I'll already make you aware of this. I know several months down the road, it's coming up where rehab's gonna have to be going on the square.
We understand that. I think
Sidewalks,
it's,
east side, north side, all those kinds of things. And the mayor and I have already discussed about doing something where, you know, when you get ready to replace all the sidewalks, you know, it'd be a good time to do it, because we're intending on replacing the utilities through there, so. And another situation we need to look at on that is the fire flow that's coming across the square, because you got some red cap hydrants that all that needs to be increased in size, so you might want to look at that as well, so.
That's right. We got a red cap here, and we got a red cap down the street there. So.
well, would it fit in your time schedule to, since probably a lot of what we do in our committee, the two of us in our committee, directly relates to what FPU does, because we're just working hand in hand. Would it fit in your time schedule to where we felt like we was going to be discussing some of these issues? If we give you a heads up and see if you want to
Sure.
send somebody or come?
Sure.
Because what we discuss is not going to come through the utility committee or anybody else. It's going to come through our committee.
Right.
Maybe that bill, if you had, you know, usually lasts about an hour, half hour maybe. It's always on the first Monday, right, Scott? First Monday of the month,
Before the work session, the Monday before the work
Monday
session.
before the work session, 9 o'clock down here. So anytime we could be talking about anything that, you wouldn't want to come to the ones that we're not going to be discussing something that's related.
No, sir.
Your time is valuable, I'm sure, but if it's going to be discussing something that's related, and we, especially when we get into the square talk, it might be a good idea just all of us get together.
It'd be good, because that's gonna be
We'll have,
Major
we'll
job.
have
Well, the invite has been extended.
And,
And
you know,
I'll follow
the last thing that we've applied for is like $13 million, and it's all water projects, you know, that, to be rehabbed, so that means there's gonna be a lot of streets and sidewalks tore up.
Well, I think we understand that. What we're looking at as a committee, we're looking at what streets and everything, and we can get behind us. That everything's been done on except for emergency work or taps or whatever. That's what we're looking for. So we can work in those areas. And you can continue to work in whatever areas that FPU needs to work in. That's our
Very
whole, that's our whole goal. That's the whole intent of the whole deal. And, of course, we feel like it will help us, if we do have the permits in place, it will help us knowing where you are in any particular time. And, you know, it's better communication.
Suits me?
Hopefully during that time, you'll have the same list that we have of our streets that we intend to pave, instead of just a random list that comes out like that.
And what we talked about, once we get to that phase, if we send a year's notice or whatever, that's not in the ordinance now, to FPU, and if you just simply see a situation where, hey, we're not gonna be able to make that in a year, let us know. We'll take that off the list.
That'd be great.
And anything we come up with as a list will be an intent list only. It won't be that we're actually gonna, it'll just be some streets that we want to try to put on to work toward paving. And if you get in a situation where you just can't get the work done, that ain't gonna be no problem. We'll just go somewhere else.
Right, and seeing the thing that makes it so complicated is by the time you do camera, and time you do smoke testing, time you have to go back to the state to give them a plan of what you're gonna be working on, you know, that's 6, 7, 8 months, sometimes a year, for them to come in and say, you got permission to use these funds for that work. So we have to approve all that to the state of what needs to be done with the, you know, if the sewer's got inflow or infiltration, if the water line's gone from a 4-inch to a 2-inch from the buildups inside the pipe and those kinds of things. So it's a very, very complicated.
Absolutely.
It's not like working on the electric side, you know, if we have to go out and replace lines, that's simple. It's dangerous, but it's simple. You know, and so
Well,
the infrastructure is just simple, but this is, the
if-
water and sewer is not simple.
If you're in our committee and we're talking about streets or whatever and areas that we want to be concerned about, and it's something, if you're there and you can give us information, it'll help us a whole lot.
No problem.
It'll help us a whole lot, it really will. And as far as that list you showed right there, I don't know, do you remember seeing that list? I don't remember seeing that list, but then again, that's just me. Having any problem with gas lines?
Oh, every now and then, but not much.
All right, I appreciate it, Brett.
All right,
It's better
thank you.
it's better to go ahead and, this is a work session. It's better to go ahead and get stuff out in the open.
I have no problem.
We need to know these things.
Thank you, Brett.
All right.
Item number 2, Markham Drive drainage bids. Eddie, you want to handle that?
Bid come in there on last week. We had 2 bidders, Herbert and SJL. Herbert was low bidder at $94.5. Take it from the time we give the start date, should take them 90 days to complete.
And will you explain real quick for the board exactly what that's going to entail, just for this one bid?
It's gonna be taking up a tile, I forgot the size of it there, but taking tile out, and replacing it with a box cover. It's like 3 foot by 8 foot. It's a little bigger than what we need per time, but we're planning for the future. So in the future, we don't have to dig up and replace it with a bigger one. It's something we're developing upstream.
We talked about this in finance yesterday. Recommendations go to Kerbers at $94,500. If that's okay with the board, we'll take this Tuesday night to vote on. Item number 3, Markham Brookmead temporary road bids. Eddie?
We obtained an easement from Mr. John Dickey across his property. It affects this Markham Drive we just discussed. It will affect Brookmead. We've got engineering going right now on I think there's 4 tile on the street on Brookmead that are just about dilapidated. We're gonna start having sinking in problems. This temporary access through there will give the residents on each side of each end of the cul-de-sac a way in and out, so we can close the street and not have to go around the temporary road around these, which we don't have room for. And it's expensive, but it'll save us money and time also, and we won't have to deal with property owners.
It'll be temporary, it won't be permanent. When the work's done, it'll go back.
This price is for putting it in and take it back out when the project's complete.
So you had a low bid here for Lincoln paving at $30,200.
That's correct. We had 3 bidders on that job.
And for those that are trying to put in context where that's at, if you go down Brookmead Circle, or just is a turnaround, or if you go down Markham Drive, it would connect between those 2 streets. So the recommendation is Lincoln paving at $30,200. If it's okay, we discussed this in finance, and the recommendation is to go to a vote on Tuesday night. Number 4, Bagley drainage project bids. Eddie?
We had 1 bidder on this project. It's one, Miss Bank property. It's one we've been dealing with for several years now. This is the 2nd time we bid it. It come in at $129,230. Myself and Christian, the contractor, and their engineer met. We've deleted some things out of this, a couple of catch basins. One we're doing completely away with. One I think we can fix with paving, and we pave back the drive the next time. We've done away with sod. We've done away with sod. We're gonna seed draw, and the new price is $90,256.
And that was rebid.
Yep.
Was
The
that-
$90,256 was negotiated with the last contract. The only bidder we had on that project at that time.
Okay.
This last bid.
We discussed this at finance yesterday, the recommendation that $90,256 was to take this to work session, and then if it's okay with the board, we'll take this to a vote Tuesday night. Last item, RFQ for storm water drainage issues. Scott?
Mayor, this is an issue that we want to bring to the board's attention that may not require formal action at this time, other than a approval to move forward with RFQ, or request for qualifications. What we're looking for that was discussed in the Public Works Committee, we've got a lot of drainage issues coming up, and instead of having to advertise and seek engineers for every project, let's get one that will work with us throughout the fiscal year. And then when we negotiate, you know, the price for the engineering services, then we'll bring it to board for board approval. But we would like to go ahead and submit RFQs at this time and go ahead and seek an engineer based on their qualifications, engineering firm.
If that's okay, we'll take this Tuesday night. Eddie, you have anything else? We got holiday tomorrow. How's trash pickup gonna go?
We will not pick up trash from anything tomorrow at all. Friday morning, we'll be back in, and we'll run Thursday's route Friday morning and try to get all Friday's yards cut and driveways cut. Try to get 2 days into one.
Okay. Do you have anything else?
No, sir.
Okay. We'll go to the police. Chief Howell's not here. We have 2 permits. One is, we do this each year, the 16th Annual Trail of Tears on October 26, 2019. If that's permissible, we'll take that to a vote on Tuesday. Number 2 is Mingle and Jingle. This is an event by the Merchants on the Square for November 2nd, 2019. Scott, are you aware of, is there any closure of anything?
My understanding is the only thing will be inside the square, inside the courthouse segment of the square.
As far as setting up vendors and
Yes, sir.
food
No
trucks?
street closures.
Okay. It's okay, the board will take this Tuesday. Fire department. Interim Chief, you have anything?
No, sir, nothing to report.
Scott, you announce talk about our new fire chief?
Yes, sir. Jim Baldwin, a 30-year veteran of fire service from Strawberry Plains, will be joining us July 15th. He came through a very extensive screening process, interview process, coordinated by MTAS fire consultant Steve Cross. Comes highly qualified and appears to be ready to hit the ground running. He's a strong vision for the fire department and the future of it, and understands budget restrictions and other issues that go into it. So looking forward to having him come on board with us.
All right, well, welcome him on board. We'll go to Parks and Rec. We talked in finance yesterday. There was a request about creating a restricted account for recreation revenues. As a finance, we talked about not, if this does take place, not doing it within this budget that just passed, but preparing it in the future for a future budget. Chris, you want to talk to that, Denny? Speak to that.
I mean, I would like to see it happen, pretty much. That's all I got to say about it.
So the intention is this mainly in regards to the concessions?
Yes, sir. And as far as just like our different events we have, just to kind of see what we bring in versus what we spend out on the seat.
What's the board's
Makes
thoughts on
sense.
this?
Well, if it's gonna be in the next budget cycle, I mean, we got a while. I mean, let's put together your plan, so we'll know exactly the purpose of it.
I brought this forward. Chris was not at the meeting the other day or whatever, and I had brought it forward because there were some things in the budget, like fixing the tennis courts and stuff that we didn't approve in the budget, and I thought that money allocated could go towards things like that to put back into the recreation center.
Yeah, this is the first year that I believe we're showing big profits from concession and things. And we want to put those right back into programs.
So
We're
what,
looking at.
Makes sense.
so what's to keep you from putting it back? I'm not against the restricted account, really, but is there something that's keeping recreation from using those funds? What are we,
No, not
what are
right
we
now.
doing saying you
No.
can't use them for what you want to use
We were
them
just
for?
wondering if you thought somebody it was being pulled for something else.
No, I would just, what I understood is all the money goes back into the general funds. And I just would like to see it go back into a separate line item in recreation so the money can be reused in recreation.
Isn't that how it is now? I mean, any money collected by the rec department goes back into the rec department.
No, it goes back in the general fund, doesn't it?
I guess that's where, yeah.
Yeah, it goes
General
in.
fund. But-
General revenue.
Yeah,
Right.
but the general fund funds the
Funds the
rec
rec
Funds
center. And
the
we,
rec
we haven't had
department.
any issues with that.
But it's just basically talking about another line item, knowing that that's rec money. Is that
Right.
right?
Money we could use for different programs, like we're wanting to do a back to
Well,
school
repairs are,
party, things like that.
Well, if that's the case, we're talking about doing it, in the next budget cycle, not this, that's a year from now.
Stacy,
Yeah.
you-
What's
Stacy,
the,
you spoke about that,
what's the purpose, is there a reason why we can't do it now, this coming budget cycle?
Not necessarily, other than just the money that we had budgeted for concessions, pool admittance.
Right.
Any of that is going in as our general revenues right now. And so if we restrict those to not be able to use them just as general revenues, then that's gonna dip more into our fund balance for this year than what we have planned on so far.
Okay.
Okay, but it is kept as a separate line. It shows where
Yes,
those
it does
funds
show.
come
And I
from.
could run any kind of reports you want showing we brought in this, we spent this.
Okay,
We can do that even on spreadsheets if all you're wanting to see is what we make versus what we spend. But if you're wanting a true restricted fund, it has to be voted on by ordinance to say any money made on ABCD can only be spent on ABCD.
I say we look at it some more and bring it back the next budget cycle. Just
And
talk about
two,
it.
the new point of sale system that we have, if I'm not correct, Andrew presented in the meeting, Parks and Rec. I mean, it lists the revenue from concessions, it lists the revenue from pool admittance, it lists all that, and then it also lists your expenses. And, you know, that's being kept up that way, and also it could be in the book, so it kind of sounds like repetitious to me, but that's my opinion.
Well, we got several months to work on it. Just the committee, whatever y'all's committee, just go ahead and work on it and put something together with finance
Get
and,
together and work out
yeah,
details.
because if it's gonna take an ordinance, and we're gonna have to pass it by ordinance, we want to be sure that it's
Okay,
right.
yeah.
Run it.
all right, planning codes, Christie?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of projects that I wanted to update the board on. Daniel Green is in the process of doing the survey for the portion of property that the board authorized for the city to purchase from Mr. Joe Lawrence last month. He is planning to bring that to utility committee on the 17th and then on to planning commission at the end of the month so that we can get that plat recorded. And Speedway has selected a contractor. We're in the process of getting their permit issued to them, and they hope to begin site work and road work on that property in the next couple of weeks.
Is that all you have?
The downtown master plan, we're having our first kickoff with the Walker Collaborative July 18th and 19th. And they're gonna also do 4 group meetings similar to the branding initiative. And the board members is scheduled for 10:15 to 11:15, Friday, July 19th. And I'll send out an email as a reminder.
Thank you. IT, Mr. Taylor's not, he's out of town. Scott, is there anything else in IT this month? Finance, Ordinance 2019-06 FY19 budget amendment. It's traditional each year at the end of the fiscal year that we go back and we do some house cleaning on just some line items that was presented at finance. I believe it's on your iPad. Stacy explained it. Anything you want to add to that?
I would like for Stacy, she went through this, not word for word, but just kind of in general. And some of us was there and some of us was not. I would like for her to do that again if she wouldn't mind. So everybody will have the same information.
I'll say I'll just work my way kind of down through it. Current taxes is simply where we have.
Pull that microphone over there.
The current taxes is simply where we have brought in more tax revenue than we had planned on. The decrease in a non-tax source is basically grant funds that we did not receive in this fiscal year that will get carried over into next fiscal year. The expense side on the general fund, the general government, majority of that is the $500,000 that the board requested to be put into the capital fund at the May of 2018 work session. Public safety, that is where you've had both police and fire departments running shorthanded all year long. Public works, that's more paving jobs that we're in the preliminary work of right now, and so that just got shifted, those funds, into the next year. Health, welfare, and culture, that is the recreation, where we added the programs coordinator position and the concession workers. The transfer to debt service are the two payments that we made on the police vehicles that was voted on. In the special revenue refuse, the increase in the expense side there is where the funds for the recycling center had mistakenly gotten budgeted into the general fund instead of the special revenue fund, plus an additional almost $14,000 that was used to keep the recycling center open. Grant funding, those are grant funds that were projected that did not come in this fiscal year and they carried over into next fiscal year. On that one, nothing was actually budgeted on that for expense, so that money does go back into fund balance. The debt service is the issuance of the note for the police vehicles. Capital projects fund is on the revenue side. You see the $500,000 that the board had voted to build that account up, along with a $500,000 Camp Blunt appropriation from the governor. And then the landfill fund is where the city's portions of the revenue had not gotten entered in last year's budget, and so that just adds them in. Overall, the way it looks, it shows a net increase in the fund balance of $1,365,000.
Everybody, if the board's okay, we'll take this Tuesday to vote. Stacy, is there anything else under finance? Administration, Mr. Collins.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll be making announcements of various groundbreakings and ceremonial activities coming up. August 16th is pretty well set for the groundbreaking at Camp Blunt Historic Site. We've reached out to the governor's office in hopes that he'll attend, and several others have already confirmed their attendance, so we'll continue to be working on that. We are having a pre-construction conference on Phase 1 of the Greenway on July 23rd, and so we'll be working to have the groundbreaking on or before that time with the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. And likewise, there's a lot of work going on Phase 2 with the goal of still reaching the August 8th release for bids. And there's been a small hang-up in Region 3 right-of-way certification, but our engineers are diligently working through that, and we're cautiously optimistic we'll be able to meet the July 12th deadline. William D. Jones, we're continuing to move forward on that. It's under review by TDOT at this time, and we're hoping to get a notice to proceed. The engineer feels confident we'll be opening bids in August, which means we should receive notice to proceed to construction phase at any time. the majority of the activities at this time.
Thank you. We have a lady like to speak to the board about Turn Fayetteville Teal. We have Summer Alderman. Would you like to come to the microphone, please?
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Summer Alderman. I have lived in Lincoln County all my life. My aunt was born here too, and a couple of years ago she passed away from ovarian cancer. And we have established a foundation in her name. It's the Quatina M. Williver Foundation of Hope. And we've been established since October of this past year. We were on the ground about a year after she passed away. We've had another recent death in the county. Miss Reba Jo Seals is a family friend of ours, and she also recently passed away from ovarian cancer. So we've had at least 2 local citizens affected, and I suspect there may be more, but to give you just a little bit of comparison, breast cancer is donated or diagnosed far more, about 150,000 cases, I think it is, in the U.S. versus ovarian cancer, where you're about 14,000. So we're far less diagnosed cancer, but we are ovarian cancer is the deadliest gynecological cancer that you can get. And it's also about 2/3 of the time, if you get ovarian cancer, you're dead in 5 years, whereas breast cancer, you have a lot better survivability rate. It's been a lot more funds because it affects more people, so understandably so. But because of ovarian cancer being so deadly, we see a need to educate anybody that will listen on the symptoms, and that's the problem. Ovarian cancer has they used to call it the whispering cancer, because the symptoms, it's like bloating, feeling full after you've eaten a small amount, the frequency or trouble urinating. It's stuff that's not going to send women to the hospital. It's very, and it's not consistent. My aunt, she had, her symptoms would be for a week or 2 at a time. We went to, I can't tell you how many doctors, specialists, all that. Her gynecologist, she was up on everything. Your pap smear does not test for ovarian cancer. Nothing does. So because of all these things, 80% of women who get this cancer are diagnosed at stage 3 or 4. There's just, because of the combination of the fact that there's no test for it. And then once you get the symptoms, like I said, most women who get it, traditionally you're over 60 years old. In my aunt's case, she was 49. And she had a particularly nasty version of ovarian cancer, but she had symptoms for up to a year, and we were in and out of every ER seeing people. And the reason that she was finally diagnosed was because they had told her it was gallbladder, and so they cut her open, and then she had a cantaloupe-sized tumor on her ovary that nobody had seen after all these people. They put her on antidepressants for a while. I mean, you can't imagine all the misdiagnoses we went through. And that's very frustrating when even the doctors aren't putting this stuff, you know, like I said, she was up on her physicals and everything. So your doctors don't know, or not connecting the dots on these symptoms. So it's literally up to individuals to know these symptoms. It's almost always, if it's caught early, it's because it's self-diagnosis, because women know the symptoms, or their husbands know the symptoms, or whatever it is. So we think it's really important to tell everybody we can, but we want to start here in our hometown. We have evidence that it's here, that it's affecting people here. And so we're asking for permission to put ribbons on the businesses. Anybody in Fayetteville that would like one, we're going to provide all the supplies at no cost. We will order them. We will provide volunteers to put them up, and we will provide volunteers to take them down and dispose of them at the end. The organization, Turn the Town's Teal, has been around for a while. I think they started out with 20 cities in New Jersey when they started their campaign, and they've got one in all 50 states. And so I'd just like to sign Fayetteville up. That requires a signature from a mayor or a town official to do that. So that's what I'm looking for. It's just permission. We've already been to the county mayor. We have ordered teal lights. They're going to light the courthouse for us, and have allowed us to put signs up with the symptoms at the entrances of the courthouse. So we would just like to be able to make ribbons, put them on lampposts, any storefronts that's willing to participate, stuff like that. But we just need your permission to do so. And I'd just like to thank y'all for hearing me out on that today. And if nothing else, I hope y'all all know the symptoms now, and that's still a good day for me. So thank you guys.
Board good with this?
Yes,
I think it's a good,
Definitely.
that's great.
Thank you for bringing it forward. It's very solid, Kelly.
Yeah, it's really scary. That's something my family, I think if we would have seen one of the infographics that I see, I mean, she had textbook symptoms. So if I think anybody in my family would have known that we might have, up to a year earlier, you know, she was a healthy,
Right.
small, like I couldn't believe there could fit a cantaloupe inside her and you not be able to tell. I mean, she was
Absolutely.
healthy her whole life. Her daughter goes to RCA, and so she's 15. She just transferred to Lincoln County High School, so this will be a big deal for her too. And I just appreciate y'all letting us do this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Miss Jenny Rolls-Walter had requested to speak, and I got an email last night that she had a conflict, and I told her we'd reschedule for next month or a future date. Any other board member have any other business this morning?
One question, Michael. Excuse me, Summer, what are the dates on this campaign? I'm
Sorry
sorry.
about that. No, absolutely. It is, so we would like to do it the whole month of September. And that would be, we were planning on putting it out, I think I don't know if you guys had if my file came through.
We do have the brochure.
Okay, so we're gonna try to put them out on or around 31 August. I would have a team of volunteers to do that. And then we would come and take them down on 28 September. It would be a little bit before it was over, but we're having a ovarian cancer run on the 29th. So all my volunteers will be there. So we're gonna come take them down and throw them away that Saturday before.
Okay, good. Yeah, we did get the brochure, but I'm thinking for TV it gets out a little
No,
bit farther than
thank
that,
you.
so.
Thank you.
All right. No other business. We'll reconvene on Tuesday the 9th for our regular board meeting.